Empathy. Thank you. I'm up here because of Kelly. That man can twist your arm so tight you can scratch your nose with your elbow. And you like it because he's so winning, and his smile is so wonderful that after the pain subsided, I said, "Yeah, I'll be willing to do a class." So if Kelly ever comes after you, just a warning. Don't even try. Just say, yeah, whatever you say. I'll do it. You'll lose every time you do it. Thank you, Kelly. And Lauren, I think I run Lauren through electronic minefield. Anyone who used to work at AV here when I was pastor knew how to do that with AV people because they wanted to do it just so. Thank you, Lauren. We hope it'll work. Traditions of Christmas. Why did I pick that subject? Because I'm guessing that there are some in this class who have a friend or relative. And when you start putting up your Christmas decorations, they frown. And they will say, don't you know, finish the line. Don't you know that Christmas is pagan? And they're exactly right. They're right. And so it dampens the spirit just a little bit. So I'm hoping that when we finish this hour, we'll put a little ding-a-ling in your jingle bells and enjoy it a little bit more. So traditions of Christmas. Being a teacher pastor, I have to give you a quiz. So here goes. Those people that frown at you will generally quote this text from Paul. Come out from among them and be separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. That's the key text. We'll come back and look at that a little bit later. So this is the rostrum of the Atlantic Union College Church, where I was pastoring before I came to this church in 91. And after doing a sermon, a presentation, don't remember what it was, but at the end of the sermon, in the service, we sang a grand hymn, and you can sing along if you wish. That's a grand old hymn. Okay. There you go. We were going to hold that off for just a minute here, but it's now there. So after that service, I went to one of the exits as pastors do and shaking hands and thank you for being with us. And all of a sudden I'm reaching out and this guy is like this. He's kind of short, kind of chunky, maybe 60-ish. And his face, his whole head is red with anger. I mean, yeah. And he spat at me. How dare you sing that song in the church? I go, wow, I've been criticized for having too contemporary music or music that had a drum beat in it. But that, yeah, how could you not? Why would he say that? Now, you've already got a clue. Thanks, Lord. All right. It'll go better.
Patagonia, Colombia. In store or online every holiday.
Kelly, can you work?
Welcome, Terry.
Thank you. So he answered the question. By the way, now that you had a hint, why do you think he didn't like that song? It was inappropriate. Say it louder. There's your hint right there. You ever heard the German national anthem? That was the tune for the German national anthem before Hitler. When Hitler came in, he kept the tune but changed the words to go along with the Third Reich and all its aspirations. And then they changed it after that. It's back to the original. And this man said, the second sentence, I was a Hitler youth, and that was our theme song. Now, does it make sense? That memory is so strong. So my question is, should that hymn be ripped out of the church hymnals because it has a dark past? We thought we should. We thought we should. Okay, let's when I was pastor here, the old foyer up there in front of where Bridge Builders class used to be was kind of drab. And so we had a generous family in the church, and they bought this wall hanging. It's about 3 foot high, 1.5 feet wide, looked like that. And at the bottom of it, there was a little shelf about 4 inches wide. They put a little votive candle and then some ivy, and it did help the foyer quite a bit. But things began to happen. We came one Sabbath and the candle was gone. Well, as we looked closer, we thought a kid was messing with it, you know, how kids are. And we'll know the candle was there, but all the ivy had been pushed back and the ivy covered it up. That's weird. And then it happened the next week, and the next week, and the next week. And we discovered that a dear, very elderly German lady who had a strong past in Europe was doing it. Why was she doing it? Because it reminded her of, oh no, here we go. They're after me already. I haven't even got into it. I haven't even said that much and they're after us. I'll sit down.
Good morning, church family.
Kelly, did you?
We have something coming up. We do it yearly. Do you guys know what it is? And how many of you participated in the past? That's too few hands. I'd like to see more this year. So I know it's early, but this takes a lot of work to do. So we have to start early and get everything going. We are needing volunteers, and we have so many opportunities to be a handsome Roman soldier, like everybody here.
Put these down here. Any other surprises today? I mean, wanted to cut this one short. I didn't realize it'd be that short. And I want to remind you, Easter is pagan. Well, you know that. So we're working into this thing here. Our dear German lady obviously had a Catholic background, and that thing on the wall reminded her not only of the Gothic windows, but that votive candle. I think in her early days, the Catholicism still believed in purgatory. If you lit a candle, you could shorten the number of years your father and mother suffered in purgatory. All right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Why doesn't every Adventist church have a cross?
Thomas.
What is it?
It's a symbol of Thomas.
Tammuz,
Thomas.
the pagan god Tammuz. Okay, any other affiliation? Oh, it's Catholic. Crucifix. But you're right. Tammuz, the T, was used as a symbol long before Jesus. Satan anticipates, you know. And we'll look at that Ezekiel 8 text a little bit later. Okay, this is the church I pastored in the early 80s. It's on the campus of Shenandoah Valley Academy in Virginia. Since it was only about a half a mile from Interstate 80, I got a lot of vagabonds wanting money. Most of them said they're Adventist. Well, during the week, my office here, this fellow shows up, clunker car, and his wife and little child. And he said, we're going from up there north down to a family down south. And my water pump went out, and just up the road, they had replaced it for $29. Could you replace the $29 so I have enough money to buy gas to get where we're going? Well, he asked the wrong person, because my dad was a lifetime mechanic. My brother, older brother, completely overhauled engines in our garage when he was in the academy. He even overhauled the school bus by himself when he was in academy. So I'm not like them, but I learned a little bit. So I said, let's go look at your engine. Pop the hood. Oh man, it had decades of grease on the engine. And I said, you know, that water pump has not been touched for decades. You're lying to me. I don't give money to people who lie to me. What usually happens when you catch someone in a lie? They admit it? No. They attack you. Good political ploy, by the way. They attack you. And he's like, oh, and then he looked back at the church and he goes, there's an obelisk, the spire. Well, I knew where he was going with that one. And so I couldn't help myself. I said, oh, you're right. That spire is an obelisk. And have you noticed that it's sitting in the middle of a round church? I'll let you figure that one out. Obelisks are phallic symbols. Clear background, washing them up. They were used as phallic symbols. And so, guess what's tied to it? Ties have an association with obelisks. Now, you look at it upside down, you'll figure out, yeah, that is an obelisk. And maybe the size and shape of the tie can say things about yourself. It is a symbol of a phallic, it's a phallic symbol. I wish I knew that when I was pastoring, so I could do it like this, right, Don? Yeah. Otherwise, you had to wear this noose every week. So, since it's associated with paganism, can't do that. Can't have a church spire. No. Okay. Did you know that decades ago, before there was Hammond organs and Allen organs, in some conservative congregations, the pipe organ was disallowed? Why? Why would that be? Because its association with what? The great theaters and operas have these great theater organs, and they did those immoral things on stage. It was associated with a very dark past, that pipe organ. And had one in church. So should we tell Will Benton no more organ? He does a great job, doesn't he? Wow. What about a violin? There's nothing more sacred in church than a violin, right? Did you know that in some congregations years ago, it was symbolic of the hoedown, Friday, Saturday night hoedown. It was a primary instrument. Can't have that in church. It's been tainted. Choirs. Going clear back into Middle Ages, the reformers, there were some churches that only allowed men to sing in choir. Why no women in the choir? Any ideas? Well, that's what they did at those immoral operas. They had men and women together singing, and they weren't singing nice things sometimes. So we don't want to pollute the worship service. It went even further. And for some, you can't sing in harmony as a choir. Why? That's what they do at the operas. For others, you could not use manufactured words for a song. You had to use only biblical words. John Calvin had the Psalter. It was only the Psalms that could be sung. You couldn't make up words like Martin Luther did in his hymns. That was the bar. So because it has a dark past, should we not have a mixed choir in this church? Many early Adventists didn't have one of these hanging on their wall. Why do you think? This is easy. Look at the names of the months and the days of the week. What are they? They're all named after pagan gods. January is Janus, the god of beginnings. You have Sunday, of course, we know what god that was, because by having it hanging in your house, you were associating it with something that had a dark past. Don't remember, Paul said, have nothing to do with that which is unclean. Separate yourself. So it went on and on and on. So back to Christmas. Everything in Christmas, including this, you can find a pagan background. Everything. If you study deep enough. Let me give you a little example. December was an exceptionally important religious month in many ancient pagan religions. It was celebrated with a feast, garlands of evergreens, and exchanging of small gifts, particularly of lamps with which to light one's path into the future. December 25th, the winter solstice of the Julian calendar, the day of the least sunlight of the year, was the day on which many sun-worshipping pagans worshiped the sun, lest the sunlight should disappear altogether. They also held festivals shortly thereafter in gratitude for the lengthening days. The Yuletide log. It was taken from ancient sun worship rituals. The Christmas greens, the mistletoe, holly, ivy decorations are all ancient customs stemming from folk traditions and mythology. Winter was a fearful time for the ancient pagans. The nights were dark and cold, and evil spirits were thought to be especially active at Christmas time. But the evergreens, the mistletoe, and holly, they thought were magical, and they were used to ward off evil forces. People used to worship evergreen holly as a sign of eternal life because it didn't turn brown. Christmas lights may be traced to ancient practices of lighting Christmas candles and fires. Ancient Norse kept bonfires blazing during the Yule season. Romans fastened candles to trees during the Saturnalia as symbols of the sun's return to earth. And did you know that the traditions of Christmas tree come from Germany, and they were symbols of good luck since the Middle Ages? So you go on down, everything has pagan beginnings. So what do we do?
Okay. I mentioned that I was from North Dakota.
Yeah.
The German community in North Dakota, they had a key text for this. And here it is, Jeremiah 10 verses 2 to 4. This is what the Lord says. They do not learn the ways of the nations or be terrified by the signs of the heavens through the nations, though the nations are terrified by them, for the practices of the people are worthless. They cut a tree out of the forest, and craftsmen shape it with his chisel. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammered nails so that it will not totter. Like a scarecrow in a cucumber field, their idols cannot speak. They must not be carried, etc., etc. That was our key text. We never had a Christmas tree in my
There you go. And Germany is a hotbed of really Christmas traditions. They really knew how to do it well. So what do we do? Remember, the text says, come out from among them and be separate. If the Lord touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. Well, when you study something, you want to first of all see what the author is talking about. And then you want to see what God is talking about, maybe through another prophet. You all been to Greece. Most of you been to Greece. You've seen the temples. You know they had a lot of nasty stuff going on in those temples. In fact, Aphrodite, that one temple to Aphrodite, in order to worship Aphrodite, you had to have sexual relationships with one of the temple prostitutes. That was how you worshiped in that temple. This is what Paul was dealing with. In fact, he said in one text, some of you men are actually sleeping with your father's mother. That's interesting to say, isn't it? You have many wives. You're sleeping with your father. Have nothing to do with all that pagan stuff. Well, it's interesting that to the same people, Paul said this. If I get advanced,
Oh, sorry.
there we go. Should we eat meat has been offered to idols? This is the same topic. Meat is, they would take meat and they would take it to the pagan temples and give it as an offering to that god. And then some of the priests would take some of that meat and go on the open market and sell it to the people. And the people who believed in that pagan practices, they felt like when they bought the meat and ate it, they were again giving homage to that pagan god. Now, some of the early Christians, they're troubled with this. Should we eat meat that's been sacrificed to idols? Well, we all know that an idol is not really a god, and there's only one God and no other. Sounds like Paul. You know, there we go. However, some Christians don't realize this. All their lives, they've been used to thinking of idols as alive and have believed the food offered to the idols is really being offered to actual gods. So when they eat such food, it bothers them and it hurts their tender consciences. Now look at this next slide. Remember that God doesn't care whether we eat it or not. That is a bold Paul statement. God doesn't care whether you eat it or not. We are no worse off if we don't eat it and no better if we do. But, little asterisk, be careful not to use your freedom to eat it, lest you cause some Christian brother to sin who has what? Conscience weaker than yours. In other words, they're new in the faith. There's so much association with that pagan god that they can't separate themselves from it. And I'm going, wow. Paul is just saying, it doesn't matter if you eat it or not. You're not worshiping that pagan god. It's nothing. But if you still have a weak conscience, and Paul talked a lot about people, he says, you're like children drinking milk, and I want to grow you up into the fullness of the stature of Jesus Christ. And I think this could be part of it through education, through learning, through being with the body of Christ. You learn to shed those old phobias and stuff, and you don't worry about them anymore. It just doesn't matter. And so Paul obviously ate the offered to idols, but he didn't flaunt it in front of people. It's an interesting statement, isn't it? Well, how would God relate to this? No, surely God worked through Paul. What about a sunrise service? Haven't you gone to a sunrise service? You can say it's okay. I have conducted at least one sunrise service, but that's when I was pastor at Sabbath Grace, and no one's looking down my neck. It was a lovely thing. We did it out on the property of the church and watched the sunrise. And why don't many churches, including many Adventist churches, do Easter sunrise service? Why?
Sun God,
Why?
sun worship.
The most universal symbol of pagan worship is the sun. Universal. So why would we want to associate Jesus Christ, the Son of God, with a pagan symbol? That'd be awful. Well, back to Ezekiel. In a vision, Ezekiel said, he, or some angel, then brought me into the inner court of the house of the Lord, and there at the entrance of the temple, between the portico and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, that's symbolic, and their faces toward the east, and they were bowing down to the sun in the east. It's like going outside church here. Turn your back on your church and worshiping the sun. That's pretty bad. Pretty bad. But Malachi says, but unto you that fear. Now, if that's the case, why would God ever want to have Jesus Christ associated with the sun? I mean, the sun to the pagans was the source of all life, fertility, survival, everything. Why would they want Jesus Christ to be associated with that symbol? But look at this. Jesus speaking, or God speaking of the earth to come. But unto you that fear my name shall be. Is that a misspelled word? No, it's not. Shall the Son of righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and he shall go forth and grow up his calves in the stall. It's a projection of what is to come, so to speak. Why on earth would God use the Son as a symbol of Jesus Christ? Doesn't that boggle your mind? Couldn't that be misunderstood? Well, this is where my studies have brought me. And I share this with you to cogitate on. Everything that can be used for good and to honor God has been defiled and abused by Satan. Everything. The more you study about anything, you'll find it has a dark past. You will find that. And it doesn't surprise me, because sometimes I say to myself, if I were Satan, what would I do? How would I duplicate the second coming of Christ? I do that, you know. Now, if I were Satan, what would I do with all these things that I think God would use as religious symbols? Well, I'd mess with them all. And I bet some of those believers, a lot of those believers, if they see that I messed with them, they can't have anything to do with it. So I'm going to leave believers with nothing, because if they study deep enough, everything that they use has been tainted by me. Well, that's not fair. We're left with a decision. Will I allow Satan to continue abusing and misusing these things, or will I take back from Satan and redeem God's creation and use it to honor God? I think that's a legitimate decision and a rational one. And I think it's based upon Paul and God. So, Christmas. We put religious meanings to just about everything at family. The circle of the wreath is eternal life, just like your wedding ring. It's eternal commitment. The little trickly leaves of what kind of bush is that? A holly? Right? Reminds us of the thorns of Jesus Christ and the red berries like the blood that flowed down. That's okay. That's okay. And the evergreen tree, everlasting life. You know, who gives us everlasting life? The Son of Righteousness, the light of the world. So we have lights and we celebrate Christmas. So my conclusion is, God has called me to redeem all that Satan has polluted. Could we agree with that? Therefore, just as I once was used and abused by Satan, when Christ transformed me into an agent of change. Let's stop there. Can you admit, as Satan has sometimes used and abused you? You are tainted. We all tainted. So does God say, okay, you're tainted, so I can't use you anymore? No. The Apostle Paul in Corinthians, of all things, he says, therefore, you are a new creature in Jesus Christ. Old things are passed away, and what? All things are become new. That's really cool. Paul, that's to the same congregation. It says, you have a dark past. I have a dark past. But God changes the dark past into something beautiful. So therefore, just as I once was used and abused by Satan, but Christ transformed me into an agent of change, so I will redeem and transform what Satan has polluted and use it for God's glory. Am I allowed to do that? And so I say, Merry Christmas. Thanks be to God. And just a little PS. I love the Christmas season. Oh man. The music. 11 months out of the year. You know what I hear? I don't tune it on the radio. You go to the gym, it's already coming through the speaker, you know, and I go, who picked that to play at the gym? You know how it goes, or a department store. And there's 3 basic topics in today's modern music. Number 1, I want to have sex with you. Number 2, you cheated on me. Number 3, I'm so angry at the world, I'm going to make it into a rap song. That is the menu of today's modern music. But when you come to December, even those stations are playing these happy songs. And I was listening on the radio that day. Oh, it just makes you smile. There's surprises. There's gifts. There's I'll be home for Christmas, the white Christmas, all jingle bells and riding in a sleigh and having fun. I go, oh man, we really need Christmas music. Really. Don't take that away from people. So I don't care what background it came from. And at Christmas, you know, and probably as you see here, you're going to do something special for some people, right? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Who's in charge of that? Where'd you go, lady? Oh, back there. Great for you. Was it Sabbath? We did that. A lot of churches do. When we were in a smaller church, being Sabbath Grace, I was able to make contact with an abused woman facility in Apopka. Most people don't know it's there because you're not supposed to know it's there. It's a locked down, protected facility so that the men could not abuse them anymore or their children. But I made contact and I thought, you know, what could we do for these mothers and kids? And so, you know, we found out what kind of things they would like, and that's what the church did that Christmas. And I had the privilege of piling it up in the car and going to the locked gate and getting in and unloading everything. And boy, it feels good, doesn't it? You go, wow. And you just imagine the excitement that you brought. And one more little incident, and we used to be really poor as a pastor. I mean, you'll understand what level. I was in the greater San Diego area there and served with several churches in that area, but it was early in my ministry. I think we had our first boy. He was probably 1 or something. And yeah, it was tight. But I learned that in that congregation, there was this woman with a little young boy, and the man was not there. I don't know if he is in the military or if he had left her or what. I don't know, remember the details. And I learned she lived in this humble little apartment. I mean, just little. And her job was just barely getting her by. And so we came up with a plan. We were going to leave a week before Christmas and go up to Sacramento and be with my family. So we said, well, before we leave, why don't we take our Christmas tree, give it to her, but we need gifts for her and her child. Well, we don't have money. This will bring up memories. So we used green stamps and blue chip stamps. Right? To buy the gifts. That give you a clue where we at financially. And so one night we snuck over there. Our little son, he thought this was great. Sneaking around with this Christmas tree. We put it on her porch and we put the packages there. Then rang the doorbell, ran like crazy, hid down behind some bushes. We had to make sure someone came to the door. And she did. And I don't know what happened after that. But it's sure fun to imagine. That's what Christmas is all about. That's what brings the jingle back into Jingle Bells. Who's doing those kinds of things. Any questions as we close? I don't know what time it is, but any questions or?
Lots of time.
We do.
15 minutes.
Oh, well, you're welcome. If you have something like I just shared personally that we could benefit from, feel free to share your story in less than 15 minutes. As a pastor, you learn when you let someone go up to the pulpit to call for offering or say something, they lose total track of time. 2 minutes ends up being 7 or 8. And go on and on. Yes.
I'll keep it very short. 13 years ago, a group of close friends, and there are some in this room that have participated in this, decided that we were going to help out a friend who was working so hard. We found out she hadn't decorated her house for Christmas. So we called her husband and we said, "We have permission?" Yes. So we went over to her house when she wasn't home, and we went up in her garage attic. The most organized garage attic you've ever seen. It was unbelievable. We found every Christmas item she had. So we knew the days that she worked. So we went over, there were 7 of us. We went over, we decorated her house to the nines. We tied bows on their toothbrushes in there. Every room in that house was decorated. And then we knew we had a problem because she was gonna pull in the garage. So one of the girls knew how to dismantle the garage door opener. So we dismantled that. So it forced her to go in the front door. And of course, her daughter, her young teenage daughter, and of course, to her surprise, we decorated the house. We filled the counters with Christmas goodies, everything that she would need for Christmas. So we did that. And of course, we gave our dear friend almost a heart attack. She started calling. Your hands are on this. I know you did this. I know you did that. We finally got all together and we had a meeting and talked with her and we sang, we went to dinner and stuff. So that was 13 years ago. Well, as a group of women, there's 14 of us now. And this year we celebrated our 13th year of Christmasing someone. And it has been such a blessing for this group of women. And this week I decided to have all the ladies over because we go in, we're in 30 minutes and we're out. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of organizing, but it's like the blessing of Christmas in this group of 14 ladies.
That to me is the joy of Christmas. Now, it's very common for a church to have like a tree and you go up and take something off the tree and you bring a gift for a 12-year-old boy or 11-year-old boy, that kind of thing, which is good. That's fine. But the more personal you can make it, like we did with a gal like you did, that just warms your soul for a long time. Try to come up with those ideas. Anybody else? Yes.
I just want to say my daughter was a beneficiary of that gift last year. So thank you very much.
See, oops, giving back, isn't it? Really special. Yes.
Gary just whispered to me, my secretary, her husband worked for the post office. And children obviously write to Santa, and I asked her each year for her husband to bring us the name of a family. or individual who'd written a letter to Santa because we wanted to be Santa for that family. And so we did that with our young children for several years. This particular Christmas, there was a letter written by a lady who was 67 years old. And she asked for a metal china cabinet to put her dishes in. Well, they don't make those kind of cabinets anymore.
Have to come
So-
out of military base.
I soon realized we were gonna be taking a wood cabinet for her to put her dishes in. So we go to find her address. She lived probably 40 miles from our home in the boonies. There was nothing around and she was in a trailer. And by the time we finally found her place, it was 10 or 10:30 and it was dark. And so we were hesitant, but here we'd come all this way to try to find her, to give her this cabinet that we had purchased. And then we also brought some religious materials just to leave with her. When we went into that, we knocked on the door. And of course, she came in her nightgown because she was asleep. It was a one-room trailer with a kerosene heater in the floor. And the dishes were sitting on a chair. It was the most just humbling experience to be there. And she thought we were angels. She said, "You all are angels." She thought we had just come from above to bring her this cabinet. She was so excited. We set it all up, put her dishes in it.
Did she say that
Very
about,
well, this time
did
it's-
she say that about your husband too?
Yeah, she said that. She thought, it was like 11 o'clock or 11:30 by the time we got out of there. But anyway, it's just, if you ever want to find somebody, the post office gets all these letters written to Santa and you just never know.
It's gotta be fun, man. Makes you smile, Okay, you can tell me when we're out of time, Lauren. Anybody else wanna chime in? Or you wanna raise your hand and say, I'd like to receive that kind of attention this Christmas? It's been a rough year, I'm not gonna get my Xbox or whatever.
Get a Ruddus group to decorate your home.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and Kelly, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say, when I was 21 years old, I was about to spend my first Christmas away from home. I was a missionary in Thailand. And I had two fellow missionaries from the States. But I had never been away from my family for Christmas and I wasn't looking forward to it. Well, right before Christmas, or maybe 2 weeks before Christmas, we were asked to leave Thailand and go to another country to renew our visa. So we got shipped to Penang, which is a lovely little island. And there's an Adventist hospital there. And we thought we'd be there for one weekend and turn around and come home. But that didn't happen. And we were there for Christmas. So we were away from our home, away from home. But those missionaries made sure we had a good Christmas. And I got invited to one of the church members, not even a missionary, who owned a restaurant, and an 8-course meal on Christmas Eve. And then we joined with the church and we went to quite a few church members' homes, and the youth group, the young adults sang. And so every home we went to had treats for us. And I thought that was a wonderful
That'd
tradition.
keep it going.
Yeah. And then on Christmas Day, the church invited us not only the missionaries to a Christmas dinner, but they invited us to go sledding down a waterfall of all things. There's no snow, but I really felt welcomed. And I think part of that is inviting the stranger to have Christmas with us.
That's part of the whole spirit, By the way, we don't do this often, but if you ever go to SeaWorld during Christmas season, I highly recommend the ice skating performance at the stadium. It is New York good. But there's one song in there that just, I'll be home for Christmas. And you have this lone skater out there, And here, excuse me, here steps out this US Army uniform skater in the shadows.
Mm.
And they join up, go around. Well, that has special meaning because my dad was marooned in Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge on Christmas Day, 1944. And he said, if Patton had not have come, you might not be here. So he wasn't home for Christmas, but he made it home. Special, wasn't it? All right, now, just in case you want anything there, Kelly and Lauren both have my email address. You can bug them, and I'll be glad to send you the whole PowerPoint if that'd be helpful to you, okay? Because you might want to reference something there. Kelly, I will thank you. I think. And Lauren, you did good. Did good. Well, thank you all. Have a Merry Christmas.